Okay, so let's maybe we can write a little program that kind of use all these variable types, and also we'll use the scanner to read data from the user console, and we'll let's see what's next week's chapter. Is it on functions? Let me just check really quick. So we can do a little bit on that as well. Next week is yes, method, classes, and objects. So that's functions. So we can do a little bit of that so you can get ahead when you get there. All right, so let's create a new I'm going to close all this. Let's create a new package in here. So again, you can have as many packages as you want inside a unit or a project. This is called a project folder here, and then the SRC is the source folder, and here you can have a lot of packages. Again, a package is just a folder or a series of subdirectories that you use to organize your files. Okay, they're related to a certain program that you put it in there. So let's just say I'm going to create a new package, and this time we'll call it unit 1. Let's call it u1 dot. I'll just call it practice. And you see that sometimes you can use that. You can use a lot of dot stuff. Practice, program, dot something, right? This name here, this name convention is very common to if you ever program like mobile applications. Usually you have a unique name for that, and sometimes you have the reverse name of it every domain name, like com.mydomain.subdomain, right? Program or something like that. So I'll call it U1 practice. Okay, and so you see U1 dot practice. Again, this is just a folder structure. So if you view the folders, because in this method here in the package explorer you see the dot notation, but if you view this in the folder structure, you see that it's actually a subfolder. It's a folder called U1, and so U1 is a folder called practice, and so the practice folder is where you have your source code. Okay. I don't remember how we show that one here, but I think I don't remember where. Yeah, somewhere. Let's see, just show you really quick. In the C drive, I think I have gateway here and semester, summer. So here is in Java 1. Okay, so here it is, right? You see that this folder inside unit 1 is this unit 1 here. Inside the SRC folder, I have the chapter 1 in U1. Chapter 1 here. Inside my chapter 1, I have the dog and the program. I have the U1. I don't see the practice because the dot here represents a directory. Okay, so inside the U1, I have the practice. Okay, so it works that way. So when you navigate in the Explorer, you see a lot of folders this way. If you have a lot of dots here, then you have a lot of folders over here as well. Okay, that's just how Java organizes your code, and so on. Right. So now let's create a class in here, and we'll create a class. Just go here to shortcut, the green icon with the C and the plus here, and then notice it tells you here the source folder here inside the package is called here, and then you give it a name. So by convention, class names always starts with a capital letter. If it has more than one word, then you want to capitalize every first letter of the word. So I'm going to create a program here called, let's call it practice program. Okay, and the modifiers are here, so by default is checked as public. We want that. And then down here is going to be the name, the main program, so we need to include the public static void main here. And maybe not all IDEs have this option, or some maybe add it by default automatically, but this is just part of Eclipse that give you this option. If you want to create it, then you check that box. If you don't, then you have to create it yourself manually. And just go ahead and click finish. If you want to see what comments it look like, you can do that. If I check generate comments, so you can see what it looks like. And if I click finish, you see that it adds more comments to it, right? You see the Java docs all added here. Up here on the top, you see this. Suddenly numbers disappears from 2 to 3. That means it's been collapsed. So you click the plus here to see the rest of the code. And you can collapse the code to make them look, give some space shorter. So here the comments give you the Java doc comments, and it also gives you a single line comment here. Okay. So that's good for documentation. All right. So I'm going to remove my comments because I'm taking my spaces. Okay, expand that. We can remove this. Alright, so let's write a program to prompt the user to enter some data, and then we use some number or a character, whatever it is, to do some calculation and return. We can check on those whether they match something or not, or maybe just output those data to the user again. Okay. All right. And so this is how you would start. So again, a program always have 3 things. Okay, usually 4, but 3 should be the main things here. You have the input, the process part, and then the output part. Okay, so the input, process, output. Always follow those 3 steps there. If you have that in your mind all the time, then you will see how easy it could be to help you tackle any problems from one a sub module to the whole program. It always follows that step. And then the 4th part, which you don't see usually is happening behind the scene, is you will store the data. So you save the data to a database or file or some kind of record, right? So it's like you read the input, you process it, save the data, and then you display to the user, right? So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the input. Input comes in many forms, right? It can be from a file, could be coming from another variable locally you created here, could be coming from a database or from another APIs, right? It could also be coming from a mouse click, a swipe, a printer, all sorts. Okay, so the first thing is here you put read input, and this is part of what's called a pseudocoding. Okay, pseudocode is you just write very simple English sentences to kind of help you, guide you to write your code. Let's just say we want to write a program to prompt the user to enter a number, and we'll check if oh yes, very simple, right? Prompt the user enter a number, and then we'll print the number to the screen, right? Something like that. So first you read the input. So actually, way before that, you would say like this: we show instruction, right, or display instruction to user. So you can do it this way. Just kind of give you an idea of what you should do. You read the input, and then you process input, and then finally you display to user. So now I can see that, okay, first I need to do this part. In order for these to occur, I need to get this first, right? So to show the input, we just need to output a function, a statement to the console. And we'll do that by, we'll first create a scanner. You should use that already in chapter 1. A scanner is used to read input data from the user. And you would do that by creating a object called scanner type. So you can say scanner. So as you can see, it's a capital S. It gives you a clue that this is a class. Okay. Scanner, and you can call it input or call it keyboard input or whatever, just an object to kind of tell you, so you can use that to read data from the user. And because it's a class, you have to say input equal to new scanner, and you'll learn about this later in chapter 3 how to create classes. And then here it takes a parameter called the system. Again, that's capital S, class. In is input stream, and then you close that here. So the red line here just tells you that you don't have a class imported it or added to this program. You cannot use it. So Java allows you to create a lot of modules or libraries that you can import and use, so that you don't have to create them yourselves. Right? Most languages do that. So what happens is that when you create a different module in a different class, because it's not inside your program called practice program, it's not visible here, it does not know where to get this from. And so as a result, we need to import this from the Java utility class. So if you mouse over here, either here or over here, doesn't matter, and the IDE should tell you that there are 5 possible fixes here. So the first one is usually the correct one. Not always, but usually. You say I need to import this scanner class. So you click that, and it will import that statement in the very top here, outside of the class. Okay, it has to be outside the class, and it's coming from a class called Java. This is the overall Java class. Under that has a function, has another class called util, and then in there you have a class called scanner. So now scanner has a lot of functions that we can use. If you want to know what scanner looks like, you can select on it, right click on it. You can say either open declaration, or usually some IDEs give you a quick sneak peek at what it is. But if I click open declaration, it will open that scanner class you can see here, and it tells you what the class looks like. It tells you all these functions that Java provide for you, right? A lot of stuff here. And you can see all these documentations here. Here's the Java doc, for example. It's a lot, but it is just HTML. So you can see there's a paragraph tag here, code, and so on. So if you were to load this on the browser, you'll see that it looks just like a HTML file. Okay, so we import that here, and then now we can use it. Okay, so the first thing says show instruction, right? So let me do this. Let me move this to the very top, because that's going to be only created once. We don't create it ever again in this program. Okay, so the show instruction here. So I'm just going to say system out, right? And you would print a function, instruction to tell the user what to enter. You say enter a maybe you do that the little magic number game if you want, but for now just say enter a I'll give it a number. Okay, because I want the user to enter a number right here on this line, I'm using the print instead of the print len or print line, ln, because the ln will force a carriage return, and your cursor will be moved to the left here instead of right next to it. So the print will stop, and then wherever you enter here, the cursor starts right here. Okay, just to make it look nice. So I'm going to read that output that to the user so they can see it. And then now, once I got that, then I can go ahead and read the input. So read it to a variable, and we call this variable. We can do it in one take. Int, we call it number equals the input, and then here you have dot, right? All this again, these are properties and functions or behaviors of this input. Input is a type scanner, right? Scanner has all of these. If you go look in the class you saw earlier, you see all these are built inside there. We didn't look at them all, but there's a lot of them. And here we have a lot of functions. The one that we want to get are something called the next something. So since we're looking for integer type, we need the one that says next int. This is the next int, next line, it's the next short, next byte, and next double, and next flow, and so on. So next int is a function. So it will automatically convert the number that we enter into a number of type integer. Now by default, all things that come to the Java program from the input, and everything you output to the console is going to be converted to strings by default. Okay, it doesn't matter those numbers or characters or whatnot. So function like the next int provides a it's like a two-step process for you. First, it reads the number, and then it converts that to a numeric value. So you don't have to do that yourself. Otherwise, it'll be a string. And then we get the number, and then next we process it, right? So let's just say that we want to test if the number is equal to one of our numbers or not. So let's just say that we have a number, and maybe we go on the top here. We can create another variable called our secret number is, let's just say 7, lucky 7, right? And then we can test to see, and this part we don't learn the if things yet, but you will eventually. It's almost like very hard to explain what to do this or code without the if thing, but I want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about that first so you can know. This is for comparing two numbers, just like math, right? So you can say if, inside the bracket here, you can say if the number that the user enters matches, equals matches the secret number if they are the same. That's what he's trying to say. Then we will put here another variable. So as you go, you see that, okay, so notice I did not put a secret number first, because later on I decided that, oh, I should put it up here. And then this is very common. As you work along the way, you might find that, oh, I need to create another variable because I want to store a value here. Just say you found it, or sorry, try again, right? So the message. So I go up here and at the top, I'm going to create another string, a variable called maybe message, and I'll leave that just blank. So this is a blank string. Okay, no space in between. If you put a space, that's not a blank. A white space is a character. If you don't have a blank string, don't put any spaces in between. Just a pair of double quotes. This is called an empty string. Okay. Hence, I would say if they are equal, if the enter number is 7, it matches. If that's true, okay, so this will be evaluated and will result in a true statement, the Boolean type. Then I would say now the message would say you win or something, right? And then I can copy this again and put it here. What if it doesn't match? So if it doesn't match, because this only go and run this line of code when this one matches, when this is true. If it's not true, it won't run this line 22. So we'll skip it and we'll move to the next block. So now I say, what if it's not equal? So the not equal, you will use the exclamation mark followed by the equal sign. That means not equal. This exclamation mark means not. Okay, so not equals shorthand. Then you can say the message instead of you will say sorry, try again. So this is the processing part, right? If you want to put this a flow chart, right? This will be that square or rectangular box. This is the parallelogram, your reading input. And so now we're done. So down here we just basically need to display this message to the user. So then I'm just going to say system out, and we print the message to the console. and that's it. And then maybe you can put another message here. And Eclipse, a shortcut to print this statement here, to write this line. You probably see it in my videos, but the shortcut is to type in SOUT for system out. And then right after you press the control space bar, and it will write that up for you, so you don't have to type it. Save you some typing. Okay, so again, SOUT control space bar, and it would insert the cursor right in the parentheses. So just type here message, right? So let's say here something like thanks for playing, something like that. It says string literal. So again, this is displayed to the user. This would be like at the parallelogram icon in that flow chart. And I think that's it. So we can give it a try. On the top here, this IDE tells you something, right? It's a yellow underline. If you mouse over that, it says resource leak input is never closed. Okay, although it's not required, you should always close it, because right now we're opening a stream to read the data. So when you're done using the input, so right at the bottom down here somewhere, you just close that. So input.close. So you prevent that from memory leakage, because you're leaking the resources. If you do a lot of them, if you had created another one and a lot of these, then they'll create a lot of resources, and they'll consume a lot of resources, and it actually slows down your system. So just close that. Okay, so save this file and let's run and see what happens. Hopefully everything is hunky-dory. Oh, sorry. Okay, okay, so when you run this, it should work, hopefully. I'll put mine on the right side of the screen so you can see, on the bottom, and I'll move it to the right side here. Alright, so it's enter a number, and so if I put like 7, it should match, and say you win, right? And you can't do any more after that, so you have to run it again. If I put at 8, it says sorry, try again, because it doesn't match. And if you run one more time and put like J, and then you get an error instead, because J is not a number, right, an integer, and so it does not know how to do that, because it expects an integer type, but you instead put a J. So we'll learn how fix this later on, something called the error handling or validation. You want to validate, make sure the input is a number only. So it will tell, it says the error is a input mismatch. So for now, we just assume that the number entered is a valid number. And if I enter again, if I put a decimal number, which is 7.0, okay, it's also incorrect because it's a decimal number and not an integer number. Again, it's a mismatch because I'm expecting a whole number only, integer, but I get a decimal number. If you want a decimal number, then you should say here next float or next double. But then once you do that, you have to change this to the double type as well. So you have to match the number exactly how they are defined in your program, which is why it's called a very strictly or strongly typed language. Java is. Other languages like JavaScript or PHP and Python don't really care. All right, so and if you want this to like repeat and keep going forever until you find the correct number, then you'll learn to do that later when we talk about loop. You can loop through the whole code. You keep going back and forth here. Some languages let you, has what's called a go-to statement. Java has that too, but it's not efficient, and you shouldn't use that. We're not going to use those statements in there. We use a loop instead. So when we get there, we'll do it a more efficient way. But for now, this is a loop, so you have to, repeat all the time. Another way you can use to kind of do that is you can use functions to do it. Okay, so we can do that here. Since the next chapter is going to be functions, so function is like this. This is a function like we talked earlier about the dog and their bark and talk stuff, right? Those are functions. A function is used to do something, either calculate something, right? It's calculating or process something, or displaying something. These are all functions. So instead of writing your code like this in a very long lines of statements here in one block of code, you can break this down into a very specific functions, and then process the data that way. So here, for example, this part here, enter a number. You can split this and put it to a function. Although it's very simple, usually you might have more comments or statements than this one here. But if you want to reuse this again, let's just say if I enter again, if I enter 5 and it says, sorry, try again, enter a number again, right? I keep going like that. So I want to display this number again, right? So that's where function becomes very useful. And so you can say, I want to go and create a function to display this part. Okay, so right down here in the bottom of the code here, be sure this block here is the main one. Okay, so just how close you can see this is the main block. So below the main block, again, I'm just collapsing that here so you can see the code jumps from line 8 to 37. So below that I have a function. You can copy this part here. Looks very similar to this. Okay, so public static void, you can say show instruction, something like that, and then a pair of curlies. Looks exactly same similar. A void means we're not returning anything, right? We just do something and then done. So we just show the message and we're done. That's why it's void. We're not returning anything back. So just show the instruction. So now I can go and then go back to my code here and, you know, copy this, or actually cut it, you know, cut it, and then paste it inside this function here. I can paste it here. Okay, so now I have a function that does this all the time. Next time, if I just say show instruction, it will run this every time. So now, up here where I deleted it, inside here, then I just make a function call. When you call a function, or we invoke a function, you just call its name. And we called it show instruction. And then that is the statement. So now it's going to call this function called instruction down here, and then down here. So inside this function, it's going to run whatever statements you put in here. In this case, we just have one simple statement to output a message to the user, enter a number, and then done. So if I show it again, just copy this and put it wherever I want to use it, right? So function makes that very, very handy for so you can use that over and over again. It's called code reusability, and that is the powerful features of functions. Okay, I can do the same thing here, right? This is the input. So I can read input. I can have another function, read input. So I can go down here again, very bottom. I'll make some spaces, you can see. So I can say public static void, and let's just say I'll return an integer back. So instead of void, I will return int, and we'll just say you know, get input. It has a line because we need to return something. Okay, so if you go back to your return your code here, so all basically we do is I'm gonna go and get this part here. Okay, cut that part, Control X, cut it, and put it in here. You see that input is no longer accessible because input, again, I mentioned earlier about functions, because input is a local variable. Here it's a separate function, so it doesn't work, right? So that means I have to make this input global so I can use it everywhere. So the idea is this. Let's just say for now I'm returning a number. Let's just say if I enter return number, whatever the number is, from here from the user, then I'm going to return that back to the same place where I put it here. So this would be get input. Okay, it's going to read the input and return it and assign to this variable called number. But instead of having that read here, I call a function instead. So I can do one of two things. One is this input here. Since I'm only reading inside the input function, I could, you know, now move this one. You can copy it or you can just cut it. Let's just cut it, because I don't use it anywhere else in here. And move it inside the input function. So put it in here. And since it's only in here, I also want to move the input close. Okay, and just drag it, put down here. Oh no, I mean not after, it's before. Put it here. I'm done. No, this one here. Cut that and put it in here. Close it. So I read it. No, sorry. You can't because you can't close it and then read the next. It doesn't work. Okay, we'll just leave it for now. Let's not close it. We'll just leave it for now. Okay, so I'm gonna read it. You could do this. You could say, you know, int n equals input. You can read it line by line like this, and then you can do the close, right? Input dot close. So once I read it, I don't need to read it again, and then you can return the n. Okay. So I declare scanner, I read the input, and I assign it to a variable called n, and then I close it. I don't need it anymore. I return n. So whatever n is, it's going to return back to wherever it was called, and that was way up there when we assign this input to another variable called number. Okay, so number here goes in here, assigned to number, and then the rest will be the same. So process part again, you could put all these inside a process function, and then we'll do just one more here. We'll leave this here as is for now, but the last part is display to user, right? So you can again just create another function here, which is similar to this one here. So we do right below here, public static void, you know, display result. And then I'm just going to copy these two statements, copy these two, and then just drag it and put it in here. And then in their place, I'm just going to say display result. So you can see that my code is now refactored, and it's much cleaner. Now the problem is the message here. The message it doesn't exist inside here. So how do I display this message in another function? Okay, so there are two ways to do this. One, you can make this message here in the global space, so it'll be available everywhere else. Okay, by that I mean, like, if you go and put this in the global space. Remember, we said global space is anywhere outside of the function, of any function. So this is the global space here. So if I put this one in the global space, and you see that if I do that, it has some problem, because now this one says, oh, it doesn't know what, has an error. And the reason why is because of the work static here. Again, we'll talk about static later. So once you put a global space up here in the main program, you just change this to a static in the front. Make it static, so it's all static basically. So now message is available everywhere else. It's not in here, but it's declared outside of any function in the global space. I can call it here. So now I can access down here, and it's all fine. That's one way to do it. Okay. Another way is you will pass it to the function, and we'll learn about that as you go into next week. But you will pass the function, I mean, variable here, and then you need to receive in here. So I'm not going to do that now. I'm just use the global space for now. Okay, so we basically refactored our code. I removed the message to the global space. We make it a static variable. We have a function to show the instruction, a function to read the input, and then we have another function to display the result. And if everything else is correct, if you run this, it should work just like before. So here it is. Enter a number. If I put 7, and then you win, right? Thanks for playing. If I go again and say enter 8, sorry, try again. Okay, the only thing is that it doesn't repeat, right? If it's incorrect, it should repeat. And to do that, because the function, then what you want to do is then you would need to put this inside another function. But just to show you one iteration, we would say something like this. If it's incorrect, this part, then show the message here. We display the message. So instead of displaying the message outside, right? Because you could put this message, I can copy this, put it in here, and also put it in here. And then if it's correct, then we're done. If it's not correct, we display sorry, try again, and then we could say get input again. So once I get input, then I can go and do it again. I can say number is equal the input. But as you can see, it gets a little bit complicated now because I have to go and compare again and again, right? So, which is why later on next week we'll put it to another function so you can have this loop going on all the time. But for now, you see that it should work up to this point when you read the second number, and then we're done here. So if I save it and run it now, okay, enter a number. If I put 7, then it's normal because I found it. The match is done. If I enter a number, let's just say 8, yeah, well, it has an error. What does it say? It's an exception. Probably it didn't do something here, was it? Display result, get input. Oh yeah, okay, this is not correct. This one here, I already put it here. This one needs to go away. Re-input. And let's just say that. So again, if I enter 8, okay, didn't like it. For some reason, I need to display, oh, I need to show instructions again. Yeah, show instructions. If it's not correct, I display the result, and then I show the instruction, and then read the input. Lost that part. Let's see. 7 works fine. If I input 8, yeah, it's not clearing something up. I think one more thing I need to do is, which I haven't, I'm not sure it's discussed in chapter 2 or not, but something about reading off the last character return. But you do see here though the message here, enter number again here. Okay. Only problem is it reads it and then it have a problem, and that has to do with when you read a number. So when you read a number like this, you read an int. Okay. Once you read it, and then you're done. And the reason why is because we closed it already, right? No, that should be fine. Yeah. Oh, but we did stop here, and so but you did see that it does repeat again. Enter 8. So I try again. Show whatever message here because these are part of the function here. And then it goes and it shows the instruction again. Enter a number, and then it tries to run this, but because we didn't finish the whole function, so again error. Okay, so actually I just want to show you functions, how functions can be used to be used again and again in multiple places in your code. And you do that by using a function so that you make your code much more leaner and much easier to handle and manage. Okay. So next week we'll look into functions, classes, and objects. So again, the word method just means functions. So again, try to follow these steps. You read the input. Once you get the input, what do? You process it, and then you will display that to the user. Those 3 simple steps.